Hoi hoi, it's louisity again, and for this reading vlog, I'm gonna read Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi. Hurrah! So, I can't believe that I'm gonna be ending the Shatter Me series quickly. This is the 6th and final book in the Shatter Me series. Oh my goodness, I have like mixed feelings because now I'm gonna be able to finish a series, but oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to say goodbye to the series for now unless I decide to reread it. Who knows, the future or time can tell, or will tell, I should say. So definitely I am eager to read this one, and yes, finally I'm gonna be able to move forward with the series. Now, you've watched if you've watched my Defy Me reading vlog, you know already how I felt about the book, and we'll see how I'll feel about this one. So, yeah, so finally here we are. We're gonna see what's gonna happen to Ella and Warner. So, yeah. So, let us begin reading this one. So, I just finished reading more than 100 pages of Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi, and so far, unfortunately, I'm not that satisfied. The first part had a lot of like monologue stuff. Like, I think it tries to like explore the whole like how Evelyn works with like Elle or Juliet and all that stuff. But like, I wasn't really on board with that one, knowing that this is gonna be like a dystopian novel. I thought that there was going to be some sort of more stakes that are going to be coming out. And what's weird is that the last scene of Defy Me was like Warner celebrating his birthday. So it's like all of a sudden this is what happened. There's not like, and I know like at times novels don't really have like a smooth like transition, or like suddenly we are taken to like months later or something else that just came. But like, that was just so sudden. Like, what happened? I don't know if this is like something that happened in between Defy Me, or if this is like something that happened later on, and probably later on in the book they'll explain how did this happen. And all of a sudden, so far what I got is that they're dealing with how they're going to be rescuing those that were kidnapped, and how they're going to be rescuing Warner's brother James, and Warner's being cold again. But anyway, it's just like I felt like it was confusing. I was confused, and there's a lot of chit chattering instead of like really getting into the like stakes and all that stuff. There's not like a lot of strategic thing that's going on. All they are doing is like flirting or like babbling towards each other. That's what like I was getting, and the whole thing about like Juliet's mind, like this. Like she was like in coma, but we're kind of like exploring what is in the mind of Juliet. I felt like the term "imagine me" could have been like applied on something else, but I felt like I was reading a lot of monologues, and for a finale, like I was expecting for the stakes to go up a lot more. So I'm not sure if this was a good start. I don't know how much this will affect my reading experience throughout the book, but I have to be honest, it's not really that great. So, makes me think, should I have continued the series, or at least continued buying them? Well, I mean, I already bought them. Like, what am I gonna do? I mean, I already did. I mean, I can unhaul it if I don't want to, like either sell it or like donate it or something. But we'll figure out how that's gonna go. But I've only read the first 100 pages so far. I'm already on page 102 to be exact. So we'll see how it will go. Okay? I guess maybe I should apply the whole patience is a virtue. So catch folks later. Well, okay, so here's a reading update now. I'm already more than 200 pages in with Imagine Me, and so far what happened is that Juliet or Ella is already in the hands of Anderson. Then we get to find out that Adam sort of bartered himself in exchange of James' safety, but James was still sort of still caught by Anderson. So there hasn't really been a lot that happened for me, at least based on the way that I was reading it. The pace or the buildup is not really that fast, but I do hope that the action and the stakes become higher along the way. So yeah, I mean I'm sensing it, but not that much. So yeah, and we get to see Warner being kind of back to his old self. You can really feel in the narrative that he is kind of more placid, or kind of poker face or something. He was kind of no emotion, kind of like that. So, well, yeah, I'll catch you folks later then. Well, so here's another reading update. I'm already more than 300 pages done with Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi. Now I'd have to say that the stakes are getting higher, they're getting more intense. I just feel like the buildup was just taking quite a while because, it's there's a lot of chit chatting, there's a lot of internalization and all that stuff, which, at some point, it did make sense. Maybe it was trying to brew up, but I'm thinking this is the finale, and I feel that the pace is a little bit too slow, where we're not really getting into the exciting part, and the whole journal thing, and with Juliet's stay in asylum, and now in terms of the chapters, Juliet is now being Juliet, not much of Ella, although we got to see some of the parts where she's still being addressed as Ella, but more likely as Juliet. There's a lot of a bit of technical stuff going on, which kind of for me was a good thing. I'm just wondering, I feel there's a lot of talk that was happening wherein it's Warner, Kenji, and Nazira is just about to rescue Juliet, of course. But yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of behind story that's going on, and I appreciate some of the things that the narratives that the other characters were bringing. But in terms of this is the finale, I felt the buildup is just so bare. I mean, there's not much of that action. The stakes are getting higher, of course, but I feel that the buildup is quite slow. And as far as I know, this is about 450 something pages. So I'm wondering what's going to be happening once I get to read the next 150. So we'll see how that goes. So I'll catch folks later. Well, okay, so this is the reason why I didn't enjoy Shatter Me, and it's happening again in Imagine Me, wherein there's this one sentence repeatedly mentioned. You can see that. And honestly, throughout the past chapters, there's this robotic vibe from Juliet. So yeah. So I'm more than 400 pages done with Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi, and I have to say that the stakes rose, but it wasn't really that high. I was thinking, okay, so this is the finale. There isn't really a war that's suddenly brewed or something. It was Warner, Kenji went to rescue Juliet into like the capital of Oceania, and like we get to see Ibrahim, who is kind of like basically Anderson Ibrahim, like basically the commanders were having already a rift. They're not really aligned, so they're already having conflicts, we're having arguments, and like we get to see Juliet's kind of like her skills or her power of, with the way like actually it wasn't Juliet. Sorry, it wasn't Juliet who really did it. It's like Juliet's power was absorbed by Warner, and like Warner did that to Ibrahim. So which was kind of like something that Nazira was still trying to absorb, because of course Ibrahim is her father, and you get to see Anderson like, and then like it ended like more like some sort of like an artificial intelligence kind of AI vibes for me, that has some like romance involved or lovey-dovey kind of involved, because it's like when like Juliet sees Warner, like it's like she started becoming more human, because what, I was right, like I felt there was something robotic about Juliet, which was, or Ella, which was, that was I think the whole like point of the story. But for me it's just like we keep on getting into the psyche, and we're not really spending a lot of time of what is like gonna happen in terms of like the conflict or the plot. And that's like the thing that I look for in a dystopian story. That's how I believe that a dystopian story should be. It's kind of interesting, because I kind of am reflecting now about like how I think of novels depending on the genre or the classification. And yeah, and there's a bit of like a lovey-dovey thing going on, where kind of like Juliet is softening. Juliet is kind of like the robot name, so that's kind of like, it makes me feel like as if I'm in some sort of a very isolated place, wherein if that's what you're going for, that could be a good thing. I think it had some intensity. I'm just not sure if it's intense enough for it to be good for me. So yeah, I only have a few pages left. I think I only have like about a couple of chapters, or I think a chapter left and an epilogue that's like, I think, divided into 2 parts. So we'll see how this series go. So far I'm kind of like, it's yeah, it's kind of like but like, is it good enough for me for a dystopian book? Like honestly, I feel like Hunger Games did well, even if I'm not so attached to it compared to how attached I was with Restore Me. I've kind of am thinking in advance here in this clip. But we'll see if there's going to be any sort of miracle towards like the last, I'd say more than 30 something pages, because I'm like already in page 417 or 419, something like that. Anyway, I'll catch you folks later. So I just finished reading Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi, and I have to say that unfortunately it's been kind of a meh kind of finale. Like it really started out really slow, and was like it was going through a lot of the psyche or what was going on in the minds of the characters, and that's what we were not after. We started getting to know about like their strategies and like what is happening on like Juliet or Ella's side, which wherein you would be a little bit more hopeful that the stakes are gonna get higher. But the thing about it is that for a finale, it wasn't like intense. It was as if you're thinking like, hey, what's gonna happen next? How is this gonna end? Like I feel like we are just getting started, as opposed to like having an action like, this is it. This is the finale. And I felt like the world wasn't like flushed out like well. It wasn't as like intense as how we expected it to be for a finale. And like honestly, for me, like I've been starting to think about how I approach stories depending on their genres or depending on which part they're in, and I feel that there could have been more in the story. I mean, we got to see like what was happening. It was kind of like between Kenji and Warner trying to rescue Juliet or Ella. But like I felt like there was something lacking. I felt like it was just, we are just in this like little world. We don't know like what is happening about like the other things that the establishment could have been doing. Like I know that Juliet is going to be like the target ultimate weapon, but I felt like there could have been a little bit more in terms of the action that was going on. I felt like they could have shown more of like what Juliet was capable of, and we're not getting that in this finale. It's just like we just saw like, okay, Juliet was grabbed by Anderson, and then like they're gonna try to rescue her, and like they get to know the powers and stuff, and then we get to see all these like side stories that were going on that isn't really like building the overall narrative about like the reestablishment and how wicked they've been. It's like the way that they were characterized, the way that their narratives, like when it was just lacking for me. And I'm honestly disappointed because I felt like the series, like I said, if you've watched my book review like years ago, and I still stand by it, that it started really bad, but it got like a bit better, and it got really good towards book 3 and book 4. Like I really love Restore Me. Y'all know I've been raving about it in my channel, and then I got to read Defy Me. It was like, it was really narrow. It felt like it was just like a conversation between Juliet and Warner, and like actually it isn't a conversation. It's like we were just going through their minds and stuff, and as well as like Kenji. I think there were some chapters, if I'm not mistaken. It was just, you probably get what I mean. You can watch my reading vlog if you want to know a little bit more about it, of Defy Me. But like, it was just like, that's what I can say about the series. And yeah, it wasn't good. And I kind of now understand when people say like they like the first 3 books, although I didn't really enjoy it. And then when they read like the second half, or like the second part of like the series, like the succeeding trilogy, they were like, because I really like Restore Me. I was like really raving it. And then like when I started reading the next books, it was like really, man, I was not really happy with like how it turned out. And I don't know if there will be like another trilogy that's gonna happen. I hope not. Like in a sense, there's like a Shatter Me 7, 8, 9. I hope that's not going to be the case. Or if they're going to be exploring, let's say, Emmeline's, like, what happened to her. Like, that's another thing. What happened to her afterwards? I was reading the epilogue, and I had no clue about what happened. It felt like this was like a dystopian romantasy kind of thing going on, or if there's a dystomance, if that's what you're gonna call it, because some people, of course, consider Shatter Me series as a fantasy. Some people consider it as a dystopian. I think it was trying to go for a dystopian, but it felt like more of a romantasy or a dystomance. So, which isn't really what I was going for in terms of like reading this book. It was like, and basically the series, basically, I wasn't really going for that, and it was getting to that dystopian peak, or like the governance aspect, when we were getting into like Restore Me. It had a little bit of it here, but like really minuscule bits. Like it was really small, and it was just a disappointing one. And I hope that, going back to Emmeline, if they're going to be writing a series that would explore more of her characterization, her experiences, and what happened to her after this book, or like after the epilogue, or during the epilogue, I should say. I think that it should be counted as a different series altogether. Like probably they can name it something else, or maybe they can even rebrand it so it could be sort of detached from the series, even if they're going to be related, because we're talking about Emmeline, who is introduced. Like I first heard of Emmeline during Defy Me. So Emmeline, however you pronounce her name. So yeah, if that's going to be the case, I hope that there's like a different series, and they can just like think of other titles that, with it. If Tahereh is going to come up with a series for Emmeline, but I am good that this series is just 6 books. Like I'm just going to see it as 6 books. If ever there are going to be spin-offs or what, like no. I'm good with this having 6 books. This Shatter Me series is 6 books in my brain. Okay? Okay? Got that? It's kind of like the Percy Jackson and the Olympians only has like 5 books in the series. All right? So I'm going to be giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. And just to add further, I gave it 3 out of 5 because it was good, but not like great or good for a dystopian novel. Like it was a kind of a decent story, but it wasn't like an explosive finale. So just to explain further. Let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts about the Shatter Me series? What are your thoughts about Imagine Me? Do you have any plans of reading it? Have you read it? How did you find it? Is it like one of your all-time favorite series and all that stuff? Or any remarks that you'd like to share in the comment section below? And if you've made it this far, leave a crayon emoji. And I hope you folks liked this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, click that subscribe button and hit that little bell icon somewhere down there to keep yourselves posted about my videos. I'll also put down links and handles of my social media accounts, so feel free to check me out. And if you can support me, that would be great. And follow me there as well. As always, thank you super much for watching. Remember, always be thankful and unleash the reader in you. Bye, y'all. Mwah.